welcome back to my channel. Today we will be talking about decks that I think are perfect for late capitalism, pandemic, climate crisis, end of the world times we find ourselves in. So let's start with a deck I'm loving at the moment. It is the Spacious Tarot by Carrie Mallon, and this deck is just really pretty and it's really easy to read with. But why do I think it's perfect for the end of the world? What is great about this deck for the end of the world is the fact that no human beings are depicted. So if you want to get a great sense of what the world will look like after humans are gone, when a lot of our stuff is still littered around the world, like cups and whatnot, but people don't exist anymore, this is a great deck for that because there is not a single human being in here. So in this deck, we get a really incredible picture of what the world would look like post-humanity. So there's a lot of vast landscapes depicted here, a lot of close-up intimate moments with animals or plants, but not a single person, which might be our reality quite soon, or the reality, not ours, because we won't be here. Of course, humans might hang around for a little longer, and in that case, I have a different deck recommendation for you, and that is the incredible Next World Tarot. This deck is actually a dystopian deck. It is literally set in the future after we've managed to overthrow our capitalist overlords. And if you're a racist homophobe, this deck might be just as terrifying as the Spacious Tarot, maybe even more so. But for the rest of us, this can be quite a hopeful deck. This is a really beautiful deck and one of my favorites. What I love about it is that it really encourages radical self-love in a time of challenge and stress. This deck also offers a great reminder though that for a lot of people who don't fit within the patriarchal white supremacist norms, have found the world quite challenging for a long time. And for a lot of people and communities, the world has felt very dangerous and life or death well before 2020. Next, I want to talk about the Textured Tarot. This is a beautiful deck that came out a couple of years ago and is one of my favorites. The colors and the imagery in this deck are all really subtle, really beautiful. But what makes this deck stand out in particular is the fact that it is textured. That's literally the name of the deck, and it really suits the deck because of the way that the cards are constructed. The imagery is built up of all different textures and layers. So it's not just images cut out of a magazine to form a collage deck. Instead, there's literally different textures and layers built into this deck. For example, different fabrics and some with different stitching. So while this deck might not jump out to you immediately as something perfect for the end of the world, but what I found is that the Textured Tarot is perfect for helping me imagine that I can feel something. The next deck I want to talk about is basically a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, and it's one of my favorites. It's the Minute Tarot. I love this deck. Aren't these colors so fun? And this deck is interesting because each and every card was drawn in a time limit of only 5 minutes. So the creator gave herself 5 minutes in which to sketch out an image as quickly as possible and to complete it with color and everything, which gives it a very immediate sort of a feeling to the imagery as well as the readings. And what I think is great about this is that I think this deck can kind of suit two end of world moods. The first is for those that feel like they're really counting down the minutes to when they can finally be out of self-isolation and we can go back to normal, which is kind of funny because it's easy to forget that the world was in crisis before the pandemic. The other mood though is for those of us with less optimism and hope for the future, and that is those of us that are really counting down the minutes until the end of the world. This whole deck, created in a series of 5-minute intervals, is a great reminder of how much we can get done in our short time left. Next is a deck that I think is just perfect for this, and I'm not even going to show you the images because I think the title speaks for itself, and that is the Dark Days Tarot. Finally, I want to share with you something that's perhaps a little bit more personal to me, and that is my Stellar's Tarot. Now, this is a deck that is one of my favorites. It's been one of my favorites for 5 years or so now. It's one of my old faithfuls, I guess you could say. But the reason this has been such a great end times deck for me is because it's been a wonderful reminder that all those mistakes I've worried about for so long don't really matter that much. And what I'm talking about here is the fact that I trimmed this deck. This deck actually came with cards that were a lot larger with a large border, and I've trimmed and modified a lot of decks in my short life here on planet Earth. But this was the first one that I really regretted. And of course, I've grown to love and accept that mistake and love the deck anyway, but it's just been an interesting reminder that all of those little mistakes and things that I've worried about all my life and continue to worry about for some reason, there's no point to any of it, is there? When the world's over, I'm really not going to be worried about my ill-modified decks. It's just really helped put a lot of things in perspective for me. But that's all from me. I really do hope these decks help you see out the end of the world and give you a little bit of something to do in the short time we all have left. Of course, thank you all so much to my Patreons for supporting me in these very challenging times, although take heart, you won't have to for much longer. Especially a big thank you to Tracy Timmerman, Laurie, Lynette Brown, The Hales K, and Biffy Rose. I'd love to say your generosity and kindness will be remembered, but I'm not sure who's going to be left to remember you. I do appreciate it though. Thanks so much for watching, and I don't know why I'm pre-recording videos because who knows where we'll be in a week. So much love. Bye. Just in case you couldn't tell, this was a trolley video. Please don't hate me. I'm sorry for my humour. I'm bored and sad and scared, and this is what I decided to do with that energy.